They made her eat outside for her dirty heritage until a human defied them, sparking outrage. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. Cold wind hissed along the metal corridor as Elias Ward stepped out of the elevator, the temperature dropping fast enough to bite through his jacket. The midday lights of Azerin IV's central hub flickered overhead, bathing everything in a harsh, icy glow. His boots clanged against the steel plates, each step echoing through the half-empty cafeteria space. He was exhausted after repairing a jammed power conduit for nearly 10 hours straight, and all he wanted was a quiet lunch. But the moment he approached the doorway, the noise inside thinned, replaced by a ripple of uncomfortable silence. Elias paused. Something felt wrong. He followed the direction of the stairs and saw her. Kaela, a young Varathi girl, maybe 19, sitting alone at a flimsy table shoved outside the cafeteria's main seating area. Her tray rattled in the wind. A glowing collar around her neck displayed the code DJRH, marking her as impure, unworthy, contaminated by mixed heritage. She shivered each time the cold gusts pushed through. No one looked at her with kindness. They only looked to make sure she stayed where the rules demanded, outside, in the draft, near the waste vents. Elias felt his jaw clench. He'd seen cruelty before on the battlefields of Orion, but there was something especially hollow about the quiet, casual way this cruelty unfolded. A cafeteria full of beings who pretended not to see her. He scanned his badge at the dispenser, grabbed a tray, and stood there another second, feeling the wind rush behind him as if urging him forward. His mind flashed back to the last days of the war, to a child he couldn't save, a child pushed aside because she wasn't considered worth the trouble. He swallowed hard. No, not again. Elias walked past the warm tables, past the line of curious eyes, and headed straight for the lonely table outside. Kaela looked up, startled, wide-eyed, her iridescent skin trembling ever so slightly. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "They'll punish you for sitting with me." "Nobody deserves to eat in the cold," Elias said, placing his tray down. "That's all." Her breath caught. Before she could argue, a heavy set of footsteps thudded behind him. Commander Threx Varen, built like a stone pillar, armor engraved with the sigil of purity enforcement. "Human," Threx growled, voice low enough to vibrate the railing beside them. "Step away from the impure." Elias didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply kept his body between Kaela and the wind. Threx's eyes narrowed. This girl eats outside for a reason. Elias finally looked at him, calm but unyielding. "Yeah," he said softly. "A bad one." The air thickened. The nearby officers stiffened, waiting for Elias to fold. No one had defied purity rules in years. No one dared. Kaela gripped the edge of her tray, knuckles pale. She expected Elias to get dragged away, beaten, maybe expelled from the colony. But Elias didn't flinch. The cold gnawed at his face. The wind slapped against his jacket. The cafeteria listened in stunned silence. A single act of kindness had become an act of rebellion, and everyone knew the first spark always came from something small, something quiet. Elias held his ground, and for the first time in her life, Kaela felt the air shift in her favor. Commander Threx's shadow lingered long after he left, but the cold wind lingered even longer, scraping along the metal railing as Elias Ward stood beside Kaela, refusing to let her finish her meal alone. Part 2 begins right where we left off, with tension thick enough to taste. Kaela tried to steady her breathing, her fingers trembling around the edge of her tray. The collar around her neck continued to glow with the code DIRH, pulsing faintly like a warning beacon. "You should not have done that," she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the wind. "He will come back. They always come back." Elias shook his head once, slow and deliberate. "Let him," he said. "I am not scared of loud men who hide behind rules." For a moment, she almost smiled. But the brief warmth was ripped away when a shrill alarm echoed through the corridor. A red hazard light flashed across the wall, followed by a computerized voice announcing, "Warning. Plasma line instability detected in Corridor 7. Please evacuate immediately. Kaela's eyes widened. Her people were resistant to heat, but not to direct plasma rupture. Humans were even more vulnerable. Elias glanced at the venting duct above them. It vibrated with an unnatural hum. A deep, metallic growl spread through the walls as the plasma line strained. We need to move, he said. Now. Kaela pushed her chair back, but the wind caught the thin metal table and slammed it against the wall, blocking her path. She staggered, thrown off balance. The glowing collar sparked faintly. Elias reached for her instinctively. Careful. Kaela hesitated. If someone sees you helping me again, I really do not care, Elias said. Come on. He grabbed the edge of the table and shoved hard. The metal screeched and toppled out of the way. He pulled her toward the hallway, but the moment they stepped inside, the overhead pipe burst with a violent crack. A stream of white-blue plasma shot across the corridor like a whip of lightning. Elias reacted faster than thought, wrapping an arm around Kaela's waist and dragging her behind a support pillar. The heat scorched the air inches from his face. His jacket sleeve smoldered. Kaela stared at him, stunned at his recklessness. You could have died, she breathed. I have had closer calls, he said, brushing ash from his arm. Stay behind me. They moved quickly through the narrowing path. The emergency shutters were dropping one by one, slamming down like giant steel jaws as the system tried to contain the rupture. Elias scanned the corridor, calculating. If we cut through the maintenance deck, he said, we can bypass the failing line. Kaela blinked, confused. You know the maintenance layout? I fix things for a living, Elias replied. Especially broken systems. That earned a real smile from her, small but sincere. They raced toward the hatch as a second explosion rattled the ground. The lights flickered. The floor shook violently. Kaela stumbled again, the collar sparking more aggressively. Elias steadied her. What is wrong with that thing, he asked. It is a tracking restraint, she said with embarrassment. It punishes unsanctioned movement. It shocks me if I go where I am not allowed. Elias felt anger flare in his chest, sharp as the plasma heat. That is not a restraint, he said through clenched teeth. That is cruelty disguised as regulation. They reached the maintenance hatch. Elias slammed the override panel with his fist until it sparked and gave way. The hatch hissed open. He pushed Kaela inside first. The narrow walkway beyond was dimly lit, filled with the hum of dormant machinery and the smell of heated metal. Safe, for now. Kaela turned to Elias, eyes reflecting the faint blue light. Why are you helping me? She asked. You do not even know me. Elias met her gaze, calm and steady. I know enough, he said. I know you deserve better than what they give you. For the first time, Kaela did not look away. Thank you, she whispered. The maintenance hull rumbled again, but this time it was not from the plasma line. Heavy footsteps echoed above them. Threx's voice boomed through the vents. Find the human, and bring the impure girl back. Alive. Kaela's breath hitched. Elias tightened his grip on the hatch handle. Looks like we have company, he muttered. Stay close. This is far from over. With the alarms screaming and shadows moving overhead, their escape had only just begun. The maintenance corridor vibrated with every heavy footstep above, each one sending a faint tremor through the metal grates under Elias Ward's boots. Part 3 begins exactly where the danger thickened around them. The overhead alarms continued to pulse red, washing the cramped walkway in a flickering glow that made every shadow feel alive. Kaela stayed close behind him, one hand pressed to the sparking collar that kept threatening to jolt her. Elias moved with controlled urgency, scanning the pipes and wiring that lined the walls. If Threx sealed the upper levels, he will send a sweep team down here next, Elias said. We need to find a way to get ahead of them before they pin us in. Kaela swallowed hard. They do not stop once they start searching, she said. They will not stop until they have me restrained again. Elias glanced back at her. The fear in her voice was soft but sharp, like a wound she was used to hiding. Not happening, he said. You stay with me. The walkway shook as a steel hatch slammed shut somewhere above. A low mechanical growl echoed through the ventilation shafts. Threx's voice came through the speaker grid, cold and commanding. All units initiate. Containment. Human interference will be neutralized. The impure girl is to be captured immediately. Kaela winced. Elias felt anger rise in his chest again, hot and clear. Your commander sounds like someone who got promoted for shouting, he muttered. She blinked, surprised by the careless humor in such a frightening moment. It steadied her more than he realized. They reached a junction where 3 narrow corridors converged. Elias stopped and knelt beside an access panel. He ran his fingers along the exposed wiring and exhaled slowly through his nose. If I can overload this junction for a few seconds, the power grid will cycle and lock the shutters behind us, he said. It will slow them down. Kaela eyed the panel nervously. Will it hurt you? Only if I do it wrong, he said with a shrug. And today is not the day for that. He pried the panel open and sparks burst out, lighting his face with a quick flash. He adjusted 2 copper fuses, twisted a high-voltage clamp, and the lights above them flickered violently. Kaela watched him work with a strange, growing awe. Humans were not known for finesse in her culture, yet Elias handled the delicate circuitry like he had been born with a toolkit in hand. The corridor behind them slammed shut with a thunderous metallic roar as the system forced the shutters closed. That should buy us a minute, Elias said. Maybe. He stood, brushing metal dust from his hands. Kaela nodded, breathing steadier now. Together, they moved down the remaining path into a darker section where the ceiling dipped low and the walkway narrowed. The air felt warmer here, pulsing with the hum of heated conduits. Kaela hesitated. This is not a safe zone, she said. This route leads toward the plasma regulators. Elias stopped and looked over his shoulder. Do you trust me? She did not answer immediately. Her eyes shifted to the collar around her neck, then to the sealed path behind them where Threx's steps grew louder by the second. Finally, she lifted her chin. Yes, she whispered. I trust you. Elias nodded once and pressed forward. They reached a rusted maintenance ladder leading up to a grated platform. Elias climbed first, checking the structural bars with every step. Kaela followed, her movements cautious but determined. As she reached the top, the collar exploded with a sudden jolt of electricity that sent her collapsing against the railing with a cry. Elias caught her before she fell. Hey, stay with me, he said urgently, gripping her shoulders. Breathe. Just breathe. Her voice trembled as she whispered. They are forcing me back. They do not want me beyond the regulated zones. Elias lifted her chin gently until her eyes met his. Then we give them something to be scared of, he said. Footsteps thundered through the lower corridor. Elias pulled Kaela close and stepped into the shadows of the platform. Above them, the regulator chamber hummed like a sleeping giant. Below them, Threx's squad spread out, searching. Elias narrowed his eyes. They are getting too close, he whispered. Time to change the game. The hunt was no longer just about escape. It had become a fight against a system built to crush her. And Elias was not about to let that happen. The grated platform vibrated under Elias Ward's boots, each tremor from the regulators below rolling upward like distant thunder. Part 4 begins exactly where the tension tightened around them, the hunt echoing through the metal maze beneath Azerin 4's central station. Kaela pressed one hand to the railing, still shaken from the electric shock that had ripped through her collar. Her breath came in short, soft waves, and Elias stayed close enough to steady her without crowding her. The overhead lights pulsed weakly, bathing the narrow metal walkway in a warm gold flicker that contrasted with the sharp red emergency strobes deeper in the halls. It was the first moment that felt less like running and more like catching breath. This chamber, Kaela whispered, eyes drifting to the regulator vents below them. It stabilizes the plasma flow across the station. The heat output is high, but should not be dangerous at this distance. Good, Elias said. Heat is better than hostiles. Footsteps echoed through the lower corridors. Threx's voice boomed again, closer now, vibrating through the very bolts of the walkway. Seal the regulation deck. They are here. I want the human contained alive. The girl, restrained immediately. Kaela winced at the last word. Elias noticed. He leaned closer, voice low. You are not something to restrain. That simple sentence hit her harder than the shock collar ever had. Something in her posture softened just for a breath, and Elias felt the shift, quiet but undeniable. For the first time since they escaped, Kaela did not look terrified. She looked seen. The peaceful moment shattered as a metallic clank rang out from the access ladder behind them. A squad of Varathi enforcers began climbing up fast, armor scraping against the steel rungs. Elias grabbed Kaela's wrist gently. Move, he said. She followed without hesitation. He led her across the platform to a service conduit half hidden behind a rusty coolant tank. Elias pried the casing open with his bare hands. The screws groaned. Kaela blinked. This is a waste filtration bypass. Elias nodded. Exactly. Nobody likes to crawl through trash lines, which means nobody will look for us there. She stared. Are you serious? Dead serious, he said. I will take sewage over getting arrested any day. Humans are strange, she muttered. But despite the situation, a tiny smile pulled at her lips. Behind them, the enforcers reached the platform. Blaster lights flicked on. Go, Elias urged. He ushered her into the narrow conduit first. Kaela squeezed through, her slender frame barely fitting between the reinforced pipes. Elias followed, pulling the metal hatch behind him as quietly as the mechanism allowed. The enforcers' voices echoed faintly, distorted by the conduit walls. They were just here, one said. Find them. Kaela crawled forward, guided only by faint strips of emergency luminescence lining the duct. The warm hum of the regulators faded, replaced by the gentle thrum of circulating waste fluid beneath the metal grate. I never thought I would be hiding in something like this, she said. Nobody plans to crawl through ducts, Elias replied. Life just throws you in them. The narrow space forced them close enough that Elias could hear her breathing steady, close enough for Kaela to sense the heat radiating from his body. She swallowed, the sound quiet in the tight space. Elias, she whispered. Back there, when you stood in front of me at the cafeteria, I did not think anyone would ever do that. Then they have been failing you for a long time, he said softly. The conduit trembled again as something heavy slammed against the walls outside. Kaela froze. Elias placed one hand on her back gently. Keep going, he whispered. We are almost through. They reached a vertical fork where the duct split. One path sloped sharply downward into complete darkness, the other angled upward toward a faint glow. Elias pointed upward. That leads to the atmospheric recycling tower. It is quiet. Unused. Good place to regroup. Kaela nodded, trusting him without question. Together they climbed toward the dim light. Far below them, Threx's furious roar shook the metal panels. Find them. I want that human's badge stripped and his bones broken. Kaela looked back at Elias, fear flickering in her eyes. Elias held her gaze and spoke with calm certainty. He will not touch you. Not while I am still breathing. And with that vow hanging in the stale recycled air, they pushed forward into the unknown. The atmospheric recycling tower welcomed them with a low, rhythmic hum, the kind of steady mechanical heartbeat that made the entire chamber feel alive. Part 5 begins here, with Elias Ward guiding Kaela across the grated floor of the circular tower, far from the patrol routes, and far from Threx's brutal enforcement squads. Soft golden light filtered through the rotating vents above, flickering across Kaela's face as she steadied herself against a support beam. The earlier shock from her restraint collar still clung to her muscles, leaving her movements slow and careful. Elias kept a close but respectful distance, watching her without staring, ready to help if she faltered again. Are you feeling any better? He asked in a low, steady tone. Kaela nodded, breath still slightly shaky. The pain is fading. The collar is designed to make sure I remember who I am supposed to be. A lower being. A diluted bloodline. A warning to others. Elias tightened his jaw, anger simmering beneath the surface. They do not get to decide who you are. Kaela looked down at the floor, her voice softer. Then why does the entire station treat me like they already have? Elias stepped closer, his tone quiet but firm. Because sometimes whole societies get used to cruelty. They call it tradition to make it feel justified. But that does not make it right. And it does not make you less. For a moment Kaela simply stared at him, searching his expression as if trying to determine whether she truly believed him. The mechanical hum wrapped around them like a cocoon, giving the moment weight, but not pressure. But their fragile calm shattered when a faint metallic clang echoed from the far side of the tower. Elias stiffened. They are sweeping the tower perimeter, he whispered. We need to keep moving. Kaela's eyes widened, panic rising again. I cannot run as fast with this collar. If it shocks me again, it will not, Elias said. I am done letting that thing hurt you. His tone was so absolute that Kaela froze, breath caught in her throat. He scanned the walkway until he spotted a narrow service ladder leading to a suspended maintenance platform halfway up the tower. Up there, he said, pointing. We can hide behind the filter fans. It will mask our heat signatures. Kaela hesitated, glancing at the ladder's height. Elias noticed instantly. He placed a steadying hand near her shoulder. "I will go behind you," he said gently. "If you slip, I will catch you." Kaela swallowed hard, then nodded. Step by step she climbed, her fingers curling around the metal rungs, her breath slow and controlled. Elias followed close behind, staying one rung lower to give her space, but still within reach. Halfway up, the collar flickered again with an angry spark. Kaela gasped, her grip slipping. Elias lunged upward, bracing her waist with one strong hand and gripping the ladder with the other. "I have you," he said, voice firm and steady despite the danger. She clung to the rung, trembling, her forehead resting briefly against the metal. "I did not mean to fall." "You did not fall," he said. "You were pushed by a collar that is long overdue to be removed." She nodded, breath shaky. With renewed determination, she continued upward. They reached the maintenance platform and crawled behind the massive ventilation fans, their blades whirling slowly like giant mechanical pedals. The noise shielded them. The shadows hid them. For a rare moment, they could breathe without fear of immediate pursuit. Kaela leaned against the wall, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you doing all of this? You put yourself in danger again and again. You barely know me." Elias sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the glowing collar. "I know what it looks like when someone is punished for existing," he said quietly. "I saw it in the war. I swore I would never stand by and watch it happen again." Kaela's eyes softened. "No human has ever spoken to me like that." "Then every human you met before me failed miserably," he answered. She almost laughed, a soft, surprised sound. But then the tower's main access doors slammed open. Below, heavy footsteps flooded in. Threx's furious roar climbed the chamber walls. "Find them. They are here." Kaela's breath hitched. Elias shifted closer, shielding her behind the fans. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "I promised you I would not let him touch you. I intend to keep that promise." In the golden hum of the tower, Kaela believed him. The ventilation fans churned in slow, steady rotations, their rhythmic pulse masking the sounds of the enforcers spreading across the atmospheric tower. Part 6 begins exactly where the tension from the previous moment still hangs in the recycled air. Elias Ward kept Kaela tucked behind the massive fan casing, staying close enough to shield her without confining her. The faint golden light flickered across the maintenance platform, painting shifting patterns over Kaela's iridescent skin as she steadied her breaths. Her restraint collar pulsed weakly, as if frustrated that she had disobeyed its intended boundary. Elias kept one hand near the wrench clipped to his belt, more as instinct than strategy. He could hear Threx's voice echoing through the tower below, closer now, angrier than before. "Spread out. She cannot have gone far. The human is with her. Do not let them reach the upper decks." Kaela's hands tightened against her chest. "He will not give up," she whispered. "Commander Threx has hunted people like me for years. He will not stop until I am back in chains." Elias shook his head. "He can want whatever he wants. That does not make him successful." Kaela looked at him with a mix of disbelief and fragile hope, but before either emotion could settle, fresh footsteps clanged onto the lower platform. Elias leaned to the edge, glancing down through the narrow gap between the spinning fans. A team of enforcers scanned the towering chamber with sharp beams. Their armor glistened as the emergency strobes washed across them. Elias recognized the search pattern. It was the same technique he had seen during raids in the Orion conflict. Divide, corner, suffocate. Kaela hugged her arms closer. "What do we do when they find us?" Elias responded with quiet certainty. "We make sure they do not." He examined the fan housing above them. A slim maintenance railing ran behind it, leading to a tiny inspection hatch barely visible in the dim light. He traced the path with his eyes, mentally mapping risk and timing. "We are going to move behind the upper intake," he said. "It will hide us long enough to slip into the thermal duct." Kaela stared at the dizzying height. "That duct leads to the upper filtration bay. That is a restricted zone." Elias allowed himself a small, wry smile. "Breaking into restricted zones seems to be our specialty today." She almost smiled back, until a burst of static ripped through the speakers. Threx's distorted voice thundered through the chamber. "The girl is vital to the council. She must be recovered intact. The human is expendable. If he resists, eliminate him." Elias felt Kaela tense, tension like a cord vibrating under her skin. He leaned closer. Hey, he whispered. Eyes on me. She looked up. Elias, you heard him. He will kill you. Not if I keep moving, he said. And not if you keep trusting me. Her breath hitched at that. Trust. Such a small word for someone who had been denied it most of her life. The fan's rotation shifted, creating a narrow window of shadow. Elias gripped the railing. Now, he whispered. He guided Kaela onto the slim walkway behind the fan, moving carefully, staying low. The metal vibrated with every rotation, masking their footsteps just enough. Below them, the enforcer's beams swept dangerously close, slicing through the golden haze. Kaela's foot slipped once on the vibrating metal. Elias steadied her instantly, one hand at her back, the other guiding her forward. Almost there, he whispered. They reached the inspection hatch. Elias pried it open, and warm, dry air rushed out, carrying the faint scent of heated dust. Kaela hesitated at the narrow opening. This duct is not meant for people, she said. It is meant for tools. Good, Elias answered. That means they will expect tools, not us. Another sweep beam flashed below. Kaela took a steadying breath and crawled inside. Elias followed, sliding the hatch shut behind them. Darkness swallowed the space except for faint amber service lights. The duct was tight, forcing them close, their breaths echoing softly. After a full minute of crawling in silence, Kaela finally whispered, Elias, why are they so desperate to capture me? Why would the council want someone they call impure? Elias paused, sensing the shift in her voice. This was not fear. This was the beginning of truth. We are going to find out, he said. Whatever they are hiding, it ends. Tonight. And in that dark, narrow duct, Kaela realized Elias was not just helping her escape. He was fighting for something bigger than both of them. The thermal duct tightened into a narrow, sloping crawl space as Part 7 begins, the metal walls humming faintly with power from the filtration systems above. Elias Ward led the way through the confined tunnel, the dim amber service lights casting long, trembling shadows across the uneven panels. Kaela followed close behind, her breath soft and controlled, though tension clung to every movement she made. The collar around her neck flickered with a weak, angry pulse, as if aware she was far beyond any boundary it recognized. Elias paused when the duct opened into a small service chamber no larger than a storage closet. The red emergency lights from the main tower bled faintly through a grated vent, painting the room in narrow stripes of color. He motioned for Kaela to slip inside before closing the hatch behind them. A moment of stillness settled, broken only by their breathing and the distant thud of enforcers searching the levels below. We should rest for a second, Elias whispered. Kaela nodded, lowering herself against the wall with a tired exhale. My legs, they are shaking. I think the shock weakened them. Elias crouched beside her, eyes narrowing at the collar. That thing needs to come off. Kaela shook her head. You cannot. It is fused to my skin. If tampered with, it releases a toxin. It was designed to keep people like me under control. Elias ran a thumb across the glowing code etched into the device. No, it was designed by cowards who cannot face their own guilt. Kaela looked away, her voice quiet. You speak as if you understand this kind of hatred. I do, he said softly. War teaches you a lot about what people justify when they are scared. Before she could answer, the vent on the far wall rattled with sudden force. Both froze. Elias reached for his wrench. The rattling stopped. A moment later, the vent popped loose and a slender figure slipped through, landing gracefully on the chamber floor. Kaela gasped. Elias raised his wrench defensively, but the figure lifted both hands quickly. Do not strike, a voice whispered. It is me. Elias blinked. Dr. Lyran Hale? The pale, sharp-featured human scientist pushed back her hood, revealing tired eyes and a streak of dried coolant along her cheek. Yes, she said, and you two are in far more danger than you realize. Kaela pressed herself against the wall, unsure if this was rescue or betrayal. Elias kept himself between them. How did you know where we were, he asked. Because I helped design this tower, Lyran said. And because the council intends to bury the truth tonight. Kaela's voice trembled. What truth? Lyran turned her gaze to Kaela, sympathy flickering across her expression. The reason you were labeled impure is not because your heritage is dirty. It is because your genetics were engineered by the council's research initiative. You carry a hybrid immunity sequence that can withstand plasma radiation. Kaela stared, stunned. That cannot be possible. It is, Lyran said. Your body can survive levels of radiation that would liquefy others. You are the result of a secret program the Council now wants erased. Elias's jaw tightened. So they hide their mistakes by branding her a stain. Lyran nodded. Yes. And Commander Threx was assigned to eliminate the final test subjects. Kaela is the last one alive. Kaela's hands trembled as the truth sank in. So, I was never impure. I was just inconvenient. Elias reached gently for her hand. You were never the problem. But the fragile moment broke as an explosion shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. Lyran's eyes widened. They are breaching the upper levels. Threx must have traced your heat signature earlier. Elias pulled Kaela to her feet. How do we get out? Lyran pointed to a narrow lift shaft behind a sealed maintenance panel. There is an emergency ladder that leads straight to the council hall. Kaela recoiled. The council hall? That is the most dangerous place we could go. Exactly, Lyran said. Which is why Threx will not expect it. And if you want to expose the truth, that is the only place the entire station will hear it. Elias looked at Kaela. Fear and determination battled in her eyes. Kaela, he said softly, you do not have to do this. She shook her head. I do. They took my dignity. They will not take my voice. Elias nodded once. Then we go. The emergency ladder awaited them, stretching into darkness. And with every step up, the quiet girl they once hunted began turning into the threat the council feared the most. The emergency ladder stretched upward like a spine of metal disappearing into darkness as Part 8 begins, each rung vibrating faintly beneath Kaela's hands. Elias Ward climbed just below her, steady and alert, with Dr. Lyran Hale following close behind. The three of them rose through the narrow shaft, the echoes of distant explosions and alarm sirens trailing up from the floors below. Kaela's breath trembled, but not from fear alone. Every movement of her body felt heavier now, as if the truth she had learned moments earlier had reshaped the gravity around her. She was not impure. She was engineered. Not a stain, but a secret. Not a shame, but a threat. The faint glow of the restraint collar pulsed angrily at her throat, as if reacting to the realization settling inside her. Elias noticed the subtle tremor in her hand as she reached for the next rung. You holding up? He whispered. Kaela nodded, though her voice cracked when she answered. Yes. I just never imagined the council would erase people like me to hide their failures. Elias climbed another step, close enough to keep her within reach. That makes them cowards, not rulers. Kaela looked down at him through the dim amber light, a flicker of strength returning to her eyes. If they see me in the hall, they will try to silence me before I speak. Not if I am standing between you and them, Elias replied. A brief, soft breath escaped her, half disbelief, half something else. But the moment dissolved as a metallic groan echoed above. The ladder rattled violently. Elias braced himself. What was that? Lyran whispered from below. Her answer came in the form of a deafening crash. The top hatch burst open, torn off its hinges, and a hulking figure dropped into the shaft. Commander Threx descended several rungs in a single leap, his boots slamming against the ladder with a force that shook the entire structure. His eyes glowed with fury. You think you can run from me? He roared, voice amplified by the narrow walls. Kaela froze. Elias grabbed her ankle protectively, voice sharp. Keep climbing. Do not stop. Kaela forced her limbs to move, one rung at a time, as Threx dropped closer. The metal frame groaned under his weight. Lyran clung to the ladder. Elias, he will reach us. Not if I slow him down, Elias muttered. Without hesitation, he swung his wrench upward and slammed it against the ladder rung just above Threx's hand. Metal shrieked. Sparks rained down. Threx snarled. You dare attack an officer? I dare a lot of things, Elias snapped. He swung again. This time the rung buckled. Threx lost one handhold, dangling by the other arm for a moment as the ladder trembled violently. But the commander was strong, too strong. He regained his grip with a guttural growl and began climbing again, faster now. Kaela moved. Elias shouted. Kaela climbed as fast as she could, her muscles screaming. She reached a circular hatch glowing with faint blue symbols, the emergency access to the council hall. She hit the panel, but it denied entry with a shrill beep. It is locked, she cried. Override sequence. Lyran shouted. Press the lower glyph. then the upper. Before she could finish, Threx lunged upward, grabbing Elias by the back of his jacket. Elias slammed his elbow into the commander's helmet, but the impact barely made Threx flinch. "You are outmatched, human," Threx snarled. "You are weak. You protect a defect. That makes you worse than she is." Elias growled through gritted teeth. "She is worth 10 of you." Threx lifted him with one arm, preparing to throw him down the shaft. Kaela screamed, "Elias!" Instinct took over. She slammed her hand against the panel again, this time letting her collar's electrical pulse surge through her fingers. The shock jolted the panel. The glyphs flickered. The hatch cycled open with a hiss. "Elias, climb," she yelled. Elias twisted one last time, driving his boot into Threx's chest. The commander slipped just long enough for Elias to break free and climb the final rungs. Lyran followed, scrambling through the opening. Threx lunged upward, but the hatch slid shut between them just as his hand slammed against the metal. The echo rang through the hall like thunder. Kaela collapsed to her knees, shaking. Elias knelt beside her, pulling her into a steadying grip. "You did it," he whispered. "You opened it." She looked toward the massive council hall beyond the entry chamber, golden lights flickering across its towering columns. "This is it," she breathed. "The truth waits inside." Elias squeezed her shoulder. "Then let us finish what we started." And together, they stepped into the chamber meant to judge her, ready to expose the ones who truly deserved judgment. The council hall towered above them as Part 9 begins, vast and silent, its polished obsidian floors reflecting the golden light from hundreds of suspended lanterns. Kaela stepped forward, each breath a trembling mix of fear and resolve. Elias Ward stayed close at her side, ready to move the moment danger surfaced. Dr. Lyran Hale sealed the hatch behind them, her fingers shaking as distant echoes of Commander Threx's rage pounded through the level below. The hall was empty at first glance, but as Kaela and Elias crossed the central aisle, dormant holographic pillars ignited one by one. Blue light shimmered upward, forming the translucent figures of the 12 council members, remote projections triggered by their entry. Their voices merged in a cold unison. "Unauthorized access detected. Identify yourselves." Kaela held her ground. "I am Kaela Rhyx," she said, her voice trembling but audible. "You branded me impure. You cast me out. I demand the truth." The council projections flickered, the closest tilting its head. "Subject Rhyx. You were deemed defective. You are not authorized to request information." Elias stepped forward, muscles tense. "She is authorized now. State your designation," the council demanded. He ignored the question. "You hunted her. You nearly killed her. She deserves answers." The pillars glowed brighter, reacting to his defiance. "Human interference is irrelevant. The subject's status remains unchanged. She is a danger to social order." Kaela lifted her chin, tears burning behind her eyes but refusing to fall. "I am a danger to your lies." Lyran took a step forward, voice sharp. "The girl carries the plasma immunity sequence. She is the only remaining successful subject from the Council's hybrid initiative. You created her." The chamber went silent. Even the lanterns above seemed to still. Then the holograms crackled, shifting into a harder, colder tone. "These claims are classified. Subject Rhyx is to be restrained and returned for termination." Kaela flinched at the word. Elias moved instinctively, placing himself between her and the holograms even though they were only projections. "You will not touch her," he growled. "Not ever again." A new sound erupted above them. A booming crash as a ceiling vent tore open. Dust rained down. A large shape dropped through the opening, smashing onto the council floor with brute force. Commander Threx rose from the impact, armor dented, eyes blazing. His voice boomed. "Stand aside, human." Elias stepped forward without hesitation. "No," Threx charged. The impact echoed through the chamber as Elias met him head-on. Threx swung with brutal precision, striking Elias across the ribs. The human staggered, breath knocked from his lungs. Kaela screamed his name. Elias forced himself upright and blocked another strike with his forearm, pain shooting through him like fire. "You hurt her," he rasped. "That was your first mistake." Threx lunged again, but Elias dodged, using the council pillar base as leverage to drive his shoulder into the commander's torso. Threx stumbled. Lyran shouted, "Kaela, the control node." Kaela spun toward the central dais, a glowing console pulsing beneath a lattice of golden light. Her collar reacted violently, sparks shooting from its base. She cried out, collapsing to her knees as electricity surged through her. Kaela! Elias tried to run to her, but Threx slammed him down, pinning him with an armored boot. You will watch her die, Threx snarled. Just like the others. Elias braced both hands against the floor, muscles trembling, forcing himself upward inch by inch. He refused to break. Kaela's vision blurred as she crawled toward the dais. Each movement sent another jolt tearing through her nerves. She reached the console with shaking fingers. The collar burned against her throat. Her hand hovered over the lattice. I am not impure, she whispered. I am not defective. Her hand struck the core panel. A shock wave pulsed outward, flooding the room in blinding blue light. The collar detonated in a snap of sparks, falling from her neck like broken shackles. The council holograms flickered violently as encrypted files unlocked themselves and streamed into the chamber. Voices of past scientists, hidden records, unethical orders, all projected for the entire station to receive. Alarms blared. A public breach warning rang across every level of Azerin. 4. Threx froze, horror flashing across his face as the truth broadcast across all networks. Elias seized the moment. With a final surge of strength, he slammed his shoulder into Threx's leg, knocking the commander off balance. The blow sent Threx crashing backward into a council pillar. Sparks erupted. The projection fizzled. Elias staggered to Kaela's side, wrapping an arm around her as she collapsed into him, trembling but alive. Doors burst open. Enforcers stormed in, but instead of attacking, they stopped, stunned by the council's exposed crimes playing overhead. Kaela raised her head, voice soft but steady. You made me eat outside for my so-called dirty heritage, she said. But the only dirt here was your corruption. The entire hall went silent. For the first time in her life, no one looked down on her. Elias held her close as golden light reflected in her eyes. The truth had spoken for her. She did not need anything else. And as the chaos settled around them, as the council's downfall began, Elias whispered the final words she needed to hear. They never deserved to define you. Kaela exhaled, a soft, trembling release of years of pain. Thank you, Elias, she whispered, for giving me back my dignity. And in that vast silent hall, lit by truth instead of fear, the long nightmare finally ended.